Hello, everyone. For those of you who are joining us, wonderful to, well, I can't see you all yet, but just to let you know, the meeting's being recorded. Feel free to turn your cameras on if you'd like, although you don't need to. It'd be great if you could stay on mute for the minute while we're starting the session. And I can see more people are joining us now, so that's fantastic. I'm going to make some opening remarks and introduce myself in a minute, but just to say there's a Q&A function at the top of the Teams chat, which you can use if you have a question for any of our speakers. At the same time, you're more than welcome to raise your hand and to kind of come off mute and we can have a conversation all together. So that's wonderful. Thank you for everyone for being here. So I'm going to say a few words about our work here at Birkbeck. This is the final event of the Birkbeck Climate Festival 2025. And it's a really wonderful way to end, I think, with these kind of mini introductions to the variety of programs we have here at Birkbeck. So my name is Dr. Steve Willey. I'm Academic Co-Director of Environmental Education here at Birkbeck. And on behalf of the Birkbeck Climate Festival, I'm delighted to welcome you to this afternoon's event. We've been really excited to offer such a diverse range of topics and conversations throughout the festival, all programmed with the aim of fostering interdisciplinary thinking about climate change and exploring creative solutions to some of the most pressing environmental challenges we face. So this session provides prospective students, or even maybe some current students who are thinking about postgraduate study, with a unique opportunity to hear directly from program directors, lecturers, and even some current students about Birkbeck's environment, sustainability, and climate-focused programs. So here's how today's event is going to unfold. Each program representative will give a maybe 2-3 minute overview, highlighting a key aspect of the course, and following that, where available, a student representative will share maybe a 1-minute insight talking about why they love the program and how it might be shaping their future. After every 3 talks or so, we're going to open the floor for a Q&A and a wider discussion, and we'll move forward like that. So I think maybe a few more words about environmental education at Birkbeck. So I think at Birkbeck we see environmental education not just as an academic discipline, but as a crucial framework through which we engage with and address environmental challenges. We view our role as educators and researchers as central to shaping the future of environmental sustainability and fostering an approach that brings together diverse perspectives and expertise to solve complex problems. And our aim, I think, is to prepare students for meaningful careers that not only make a difference in their own lives, but also contribute to broader societal change. I think one of the things that sets Birkbeck apart is the diverse nature of our student body. Many of our students are balancing studies with careers, family responsibilities, and other commitments, which brings a rich array of perspectives into our classrooms. And this diversity of experience enriches the learning environment and fosters a unique community of environmental practitioners, activists, and scholars. And the festival is one way, I guess, of showcasing the sheer breadth of expertise and energy that's here at Birkbeck. So I'm going to almost leave it there, but I think one of the things I'd like you all to think about as these talks are going on are maybe 1 or 2 environmental challenges that are close to your heart. So it could be something as personal as the impact of climate change in your community, air pollution, for example, or it could be as global as the need for sustainable urban development. And in a sentence, I'd like you to think about how you might want to address this issue, whether that's through policy, innovation, education, or advocacy. And as you listen to today's talk, I want you to try to think about which program might help you take a step towards addressing those challenges. So you don't need to write that down anywhere necessarily, but just have a think about what is implicating you right now, what's making you care. And then when you're listening to the talks, you can kind of start to work out which program might be best for you. So without further ado, I'm going to go on mute. I'd like to introduce Professor Susan Konzelman from the MSc Organizational Governance and Sustainability to give our first presentation. Thanks very much, Sue.
Great, thanks, Steve, and welcome everybody. It's nice to see so many people in the room. I'm delighted to be able to talk about Birkbeck's MSc in Organizational Governance and Sustainability. It's a completely updated new MSc that brings together some things that we've actually been, well, Birkbeck has been a pathbreaker in. So when I came to Birkbeck in 2002, I was recruited to direct the MSc in Corporate Governance and Business Ethics, which had just been set up. Now, most of you probably weren't, around in 2002 or probably not at university, so I'm sort of giving away my age. But it was really exciting because it was the very first MSc in corporate governance in the world, and it was the first program that had the words corporate governance in the title. This was right in the aftermath of the collapse of Enron, and huge upheaval, and corporate governance just shot to the top of the agenda. And Birkbeck was the leading institution in the world in this area. And repeatedly since then, with the financial crisis, and every time something like that happens, corporate governance, now we call it organizational governance, because of course doesn't just apply to companies that have shareholders and shares of stock traded on the stock market. But this new MSc coincides with the creation of Birkbeck's new business school, and it brings together the MSc in Corporate Governance and Business Ethics and our MSc in Corporate Responsibility and Sustainability. In general, it explores the complex relationships between organizations and their stakeholders and the socioeconomic environments within which they operate and are embedded. Now, the economic and financial aspects of corporate governance and organizational governance have been of interest at least as far back as 2002, even more than that. But you're probably all aware that more recently, there's a really serious and growing interest also in the social, political, and moral aspects of organizational governance, but also relationships among stakeholders within organizations and the environments and communities in which they're embedded and operate. One of the unique selling points for our MSc is that it brings together Birkbeck Business School's research strengths in the area of organizational governance and ethics, corporate responsibility and sustainability, and organizational psychology. And it also has the support of Birkbeck's Responsible Business Center and its Center for Political Economy and Institutional Studies. A central sustainability challenge that the program is meeting is the need to make sure that organizations, whether they're in the public, private, or third sector, are well governed and sustainable, and thereby they contribute to the socioeconomic sustainability of the environments in which they operate and are embedded. Graduates of our program typically go in to work in the areas of governance and sustainability professionals involved in the direction, strategic management, and regulation of organizations in the public, private, and third sectors. We also have graduates who go into areas including organizational governance and sustainability analysis. Some of them become consultants, some of them become policymakers, and we also have a significant group of students who go on to be company secretaries and non-executive board members. Some of the organizations that they've gone on to work in recent years include WWF, Amnesty International, the Pension and Investments Research Consultants, or PERC, the Innovation Forum, and we have one of our graduates who's currently serving as a Board of Governors member on UCL Hospital. The MSc also provides a strong foundation for PhD research. So a number of our students through the years have gone on to pursue PhDs at Birkbeck and other institutions. So in a nutshell, that's our MSc in Organizational Governance and Sustainability. And I'm happy to answer any questions you might have, or anything else about the program you might be interested in. So thanks, Steve.
Thanks so much, Sue. And I can't remember, are there students from the program able to speak today or not? That's okay.
I don't think so. I think yeah, I don't think there are today.
That's fine. That's absolutely fine. Let me now then introduce Dr. Ana Luisa Certa Almada Mauro, who is going to talk about MSc Sustainable Cities and I think also MSc Geography. Thank you, Ana.
Thank you, Steve. So hi, everyone. It's really great to be with you here today. So my name is Ana Luisa Sertã. I'm a lecturer in urban geography at Birkbeck, and as Steve mentioned, I'm program director of both Sustainable Cities and Geography MSc. So let's just start with Sustainable Cities. This is a very special and relatively new program that basically emerged from two contemporary phenomena that are in many ways interconnected. So one is climate change and the very pressing environmental challenges that it poses, and the other is related to global urbanization trends. So we have more and more cities in the world. Cities are growing with very diverse, but also very unequal patterns and resources. More than half of the world population now lives in cities, and cities, as we know, can have very complex challenges related, for instance, with floods, droughts, inadequate housing, food insecurity, energy crisis. So basically, the idea of this program is to really create this space for us to think about and also analyze how different cities are affected by environmental challenges, how these challenges are unequally distributed, let's say, and how cities are responding to them. A very key aspect in our approach, and I'm sure of many of our programs, is to encourage critical thinking and to draw from real life examples from different parts of the world. We also bring an interdisciplinary expertise to the program. So for instance, in our core module, which is called Urban Sustainability, you gain a really good foundation of theoretical approaches to urban sustainability. You get to discuss how local and global inequalities can shape cities' responses to environmental challenges in terms of mitigation and adaptation. And then you get the expertise of a really good team of lecturers on various topics, such as food systems, urban governance, environmental risk, and we get examples of approaches led by urban community, by businesses, by policies. So it's a really good overview. And then you also have a compulsory module in this program called Living with Climate Change. And from there, you can choose a number of options, including a very exciting field trip module where we go out and explore different infrastructures in London, thinking through the lens of sustainability. And well, maybe Phil can tell you a bit more about this. So we have here with us today one of our wonderful students, Phil Thornton. Phil is now working on his dissertation, which is the final stage of the program. So Phil, the floor is yours. Can you tell a bit what attracted you to the program, how your experience has been so far? What do you like the most about it? Phil, are you with us?
Yeah, I certainly can. I was able to log in with my camera at the beginning. Now I want to do it. It's not working, so apologies for that. I'm afraid it's voice only unless it kicks back in.
No problem.
Yeah, so I'm on the 2-year part-time version of the masters. So I started last year, so I'm sort of 3/4 of the way through. I've always just been fascinated by cities, everything about them from a social, cultural, economic perspective. And when I was looking for a master's, I sort of initially thought of one for history, and then when I came across the Sustainable Cities one, I realised this was much better. It was forward-looking, and it was going to address contemporary issues like climate change risks, demographic pressures, and then how one might envision a future sustainable city. And to echo what Anna said, I very much appreciated the fact that it covers both sort of academic and then actually practical political aspects. We've been delving into sort of specific issues like urban food production, air pollution, and the circular economy. But I really like the breadth and depth of the course. So sort of a couple of my essays have included a really sort of close look at the issue of pharmaceutical pollution in rivers, particularly the River Thames, and the idea about how we might create a sustainable urban fashion industry, both of which I really enjoyed researching and writing. I definitely pick up on the point about the field trips, which I did. I mean, they were absolutely brilliant. That was sort of the summer term and involved trips to the Thames Barrier, to Crossness Pumping Station in East London, and the Reading Hydro Power Station on the Thames in Berkshire. And we got really eye-opening insights from both experts and just people working on the ground, which really, I felt, enhanced my understanding of the theory of urban sustainability and actually its practical applications. Sort of on the mechanics, again, I'm employed full-time, so I've really appreciated being able to do this course part-time so I can read the lectures, the academic material, participate in seminars during evenings and weekends. So that allows me to balance everything. My dissertation is going to be on how urban sustainability concepts have been incorporated into Britain's new towns over the last 125 years. So let's see how that goes. So I'm going to hopefully finish that at the end of August, and I'm happy to take any questions from fellow future students. And apologies again for the camera not working.
That's
Thank
okay.
you so much.
Great.
Sorry, thank you so much. There was just a comment in the chat saying, can we use the chat to introduce ourselves? And I think that's a lovely idea. If people would like to introduce themselves, you can. We're going to hear a bit about MSc Geography now. I think that right, Anna? And then we'll kind of move into that chat, and maybe we can start that introduction process then. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Steve. Thanks, Phil. So geography, I believe, is our most flexible program. This is because this program is made entirely by the student, which means that we have no core or compulsory modules in this program. So students can really choose any options available in the geography part of the school. Obviously with guidance from the teaching staff and from tutors, so that you can really create a bespoke program, but also, you know, make it very coherent according to your interests. And that's because geography is an incredibly diverse and interdisciplinary discipline with many sub-areas. So for instance, you could be more interested in human geography, or you might want to focus on geographic information systems, GIS, or physical geography. So the idea here is that you can choose from a variety of modules and create your own program that connects with your specific career or personal goals as well. But what brings them together as a discipline is that, well, geography always considers the world through a spatial lens. So geographers' research questions and geographers' approaches will always take into account how space and place matter to social relations and environmental events as well. So in this sense, geography is obviously concerned with the environment, but also considering humans as part of the environment. And to give you an example, we're joined today by one of our brilliant alumni, Lina Shibaika, who can tell a bit more about how she crafted her own program. Lina has just graduated. She did an excellent and very interesting work in her dissertation about everyday forms of resistance in Sudanese neighborhoods, which perhaps she can also tell us more about if we have the time. So Lina, I'll pass the word to you. What did you enjoy from your time in the program? Perhaps how it fits into your career goals, and yeah, if you'd like to tell us a bit about the work you've done as part of your degree.
Thank you so much, Anna, and hi everyone. I'm so happy to be here. So just like you said, I think the most thing that I enjoyed about the program, that it was very flexible and it gave me the opportunity to choose what modules I wanted. And I also I believe we had the opportunity to choose from across the social sciences and political sciences school. So I remember I did modules on the politics of race and diaspora, and then on race and environment and international development, global cities in the global south. And they were all connected to my interests. So before I came to Berkeley, I came as an international student, and I was working as a junior urban researcher in Khartoum, Sudan. So I had a bit of an experience with urban geography and human geography, and I knew I wanted to pursue that and pursue an academic career. So when I came here, I really enjoyed the fact that there was so much freedom and flexibility, and so much space to also connect with other students from different, aspects of the geography program. No two terms were the same. That was really amazing. When it came to my dissertation, I'm really interested in grassroots movements and political resistance in Sudan. So, like Anna said, I did my dissertation in political resistance and everyday forms of resistance in Sudanese neighborhoods. And it was really amazing because I could see that I could use all of the diverse information and diverse resources I took with me from all the different modules that I had. And yeah, and I believe it gave me a really good base for, pursuing PhD. I am thinking of pursuing PhD. I currently work with a policy corporation and their comms team, and I'm enjoying it. It's giving me a new insight to thinking how, how to bridge human geography, political geography with policy analysis and policy research. So I would definitely encourage everyone who's, thinking of applying to go for geography to be able to have the opportunity to craft your own, program. And I'll drop my email in the chat if anyone wants to talk more about it or have any more questions. I'll be happy to also chat more. Thank you.
Thank you so much for those presentations, both colleagues and students. It's wonderful to hear more about your programs. We're going to pause now to have about 5 minutes of conversation about those programs. If there's any particular students who've got questions about them, now's the time to kind of come off mute and put your hand up and ask a question, or even drop one in the Q&A or the chat, and we can put it to the students and staff who are here. If not, it's also nice to come off mute and introduce yourself and let us know which program you are interested to hear about. But I'll give it at least 20 seconds of silence for people to see whether there's anything they want to ask.
Can I go ahead and ask something?
Please.
Yeah. So I've been working as a developer in the GIS domain for the past 6 years, but mostly I've been working as a developer. So I haven't had like a deep understanding of how the GIS data functions. So I applied to Birkbeck with MSc in GIS. I'm gonna put the link in the chat. So I'm starting this course in October, and my focus is also like one of the optional modules that I'm gonna pick is climate science, because even in my GIS careers, I've been focused on working with companies or like anyone who's into like emissions monitoring, like through satellite data. So yeah, I've just moved to London, and I'm starting this course in October. But and looking at the course material, it feels like a lot is going to happen in 1 year. I mean, there's study material, and then there's dissertation that needs to be done. And so I just wanted like opinion on like students who have finished like their MSc in 1 year. How difficult was it to like finish it in 1 year? Because for me right now, it feels very overwhelming to finish this in 1 year. So yeah, I just wanted an opinion on that.
Thanks for your question. Just to say, after this part of conversation, we will be hearing from the program director of MSc Geographic Data Science.
Great. Yeah.
So I think some of those questions could be answered, but I couldn't. Are any students here with us? Is anyone studying full time on an MSc who's in the room? I wonder whether we could answer that question. No. Yes. Someone said yes in the chat. Perhaps you could just answer that question for us about what it's like to do an MSc in general in a year. Oh, maybe we'll come.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll come
sorry. Sorry, my mic was wasn't
okay.
on mute. Yeah. So I'm doing my my MSc full time, and it's not easy. It's very difficult, but I think with the support of the lecturers at Birkbeck, it's sort of like it does make it a bit easier because they're very supportive. So I think I would encourage people to do it full time if you can, but it's quite challenging but doable at the same time.
I have a follow-up question on that. And the thing is that I know it's going to be very challenging. I know the course material and a lot is going to be covered in 1 year. So is there a way to get a head start on things? Like right now I have time. So is it possible to like, I mean, do something to get a head start on this whole thing process?
I tell you what, I'm almost positive that Roberto will have an answer for you. So I'm gonna move us on, but I'm also going to put a pin in that question and go, Roberto, you have a very enthusiastic student here ready to do some work, and what can they do to get ahead before they enroll? So I think that's a great question. But I'm gonna move us on, just because we're on a quite strict time scale I've imposed on everyone, to hear from 3 more program directors. And then don't worry, there'll be another chance to have a discussion. But the next 3 programs that we're going to be talking about are MSc Environment and Sustainability, then MSc Geographic Data Science, and then a BSc Environmental Geoscience. So perhaps I can pass over to Dr. Simon Pooley, who's going to talk a bit about MSc Environment and Sustainability. Simon, are you able to come on?
Yep, brilliant. Thanks very much. Hello. So I'm Simon Pooley. I'm the Lambert Lecturer in Environment at Birkbeck. I'll see if I can share some slides quickly. Let me know if you can see those.
That works, Simon.
Yep. Okay. So we're living in, obviously, this period of environmental challenge. There are various ways of looking at this. The Anthropocene epoch, some people are talking about. We're facing planetary level challenges, and so this MSc offers a really broad advanced level grounding in some of the key challenges, what they are. So we talk to you about the science, the ideas behind this, but also then going into how that feeds into policy and practice, and when it does and when it doesn't, and what some of those complications are. So we won't boggle your mind. If you don't have a science background, we won't be baffling you with science, but we will be introducing you to key concepts and ideas that we need to understand the state of the planet. And we will be talking about effective strategies for dealing with these. I think, as Anna was saying, one of the challenges is we're told by all of the major recent reports on the environment that we need transformative change. And so we need to understand both what the existing frameworks are that define how we tackle these challenges on an international level, but we also need the critical thinking to interrogate them, to understand that they are part of the problem in many respects. So we find that when we ask employers what they want from people with this kind of training going into the sector, they're interested in critical thinking as well as the knowledge of the science and the concepts. They don't want people who will just be thinking inside the existing frameworks. So we will be looking at all of those things. So this is clearly the news. The news is bad. We're steadily pushing out beyond the barriers of where we should be on the planet. So we will be giving you these key frameworks like the planetary boundaries. We will be talking about things like the donut of sustainability, trying to stay both, within the pale green safe operating space, bearing in mind the social dimensions, the minimum social foundation, and the ecological ceiling. And there are various sets of ideas about how we can stay within this. So we have 3 pillars, essentially. The course is organized according to these 3 pillars. We look at the environmental policy, and this is on global and local scales. And this includes looking at people's relationships with and perceptions of the environment, as well as looking at the theoretical frameworks that are used to respond to environmental challenges. We have sustainable business practice, so that's a much more business-oriented approach. Quite a lot of our students are looking to move within their current job or possibly within the sector to become the person, the sustainability person in their organization. And this is an important strand for them. So there are more practical things like management and assessment tools and environmental reporting and communication. And then we have the third pillar, which is the science, really, how environmental science articulates with environmental management. And we look at some very specific environmental challenges, management challenges. We go into things like biological invasions, wildfires. We've just seen these very big wildfires burning down Los Angeles in January. These are things which are of increasing importance worldwide. So what you need to do, I won't say too much because you can look this up on the website, but essentially you need to do 3 30-credit compulsory modules with us: environment and policy, environmental science for environmental management, and the sustainable business practice, and research methods. We give you research training. You have an option module, so listed on the right of the slide, there are a whole lot of option modules, including the infrastructures for sustainability field trip. And then there's the 12 to 15,000 word dissertation. So that's for the MSc. If you want to do a diploma, you do the all those compulsory modules, but not the dissertation, or you can just do a couple of the compulsory modules for a postgraduate certificate. We are part of a big family, as you can already see from these talks, of people doing courses on the environment from different angles. We also have a series of research clusters, so we have quite a diversity of lecturers who are research active in these areas. And fairly recently, the Environment and Sustainability Hub or Research Center has been set up at Birkbeck, which really reflects how the university's taken on the importance of environment and mainstreaming it across the entire university, and we're very much an active part of that. So that's what I had to say. And I can take any questions at the end of this session.
Thank you so much. So we're going to pass over to the Program Director of MSc Geographic Data Science, Roberto.
Yeah, hi everyone. I also want to try to share my screen. So it's saying that it's preparing your slides. So now, so let me see. Okay, so thank you for attending this brief talk. So here at Birkbeck, we have this thing that we call the Geographic Data Science. That is a program, an MSc PG certificate, PG diploma program that is based in these new ideas that we have a lot of data around us. A lot of environmental data, a lot of transport data, a lot of political data, a lot of social data. So what is the world doing about that? We have this firm conviction that we can find out new insights about the data, and where things are in space, because everything happens in space. Everything is located somewhere. Business, agencies, people, cities, rivers, species, everything is somewhere. So we can extract a lot of information about that. And governments and organizations have realized that in the last 20 years, and there is a high demand. There is a high demand with professionals that can relate a space with data. We have seen a huge spike in the last year in careers related with not only data science, but data science with a special component. So people need to know what is happening in the space based on the data and act according to that. why you will try to study this at Birkbeck? No, our approach is a bit pragmatic in the sense of giving you the basic skills to land or increase your chances on one of these highly reward geospatial jobs. No, and our module, our program is a technical program. No, it's a really technical, demanding program, but we train you from the basics. No, so we have 3 basic structures here in this program, where you will learn to deal with modern tools about how to create these relationships. No, these things that we call machine learning, deep learning, large language models, no, and how you get this environmental data, how you get this urban data into these models, and what insights can you learn from those, no? We have several of our lecturers that are world experts in this in one of these subjects, no? So you will be in really good hands, and of course you will be studying here at the heart of London, no? So that is we are a global hub of innovation, no? That it could of course boost all your profiles here, no? A bit more about where can you go with these programs. No, there is, as I was saying, plenty of jobs in environmental science, in urban planning and transportation. No, because people wants to know what to do with the data and how to get the insights from different types of the data. No, so we have many of our students have got really good places, not only in the private sectors, but only in TFL, in some environmental agencies, and of course some in doing their own startups in trying to do in this data. So I will say that for taking on the time that we have, the take-home message is that this one is a really technical program, where you will learn how to deal with computers, with computer languages. It has a strong statistical component, when you will learn how to use the statistic to get into the analysis of this data, okay? And has a software component, because you will be trained in how to use one of the modern softwares for analyzing this data. Okay, so I think it's really, of course, this is a really quick presentation about that. You will work with special data. If you want to know more, there is a QR there for you. And of course, Stephen put the land page for our program there. I'm happy to answer any other questions. So I will say that just really quickly, if one of our attendants that was asking if it was hard to do it in 1 year, it is. It's doable, of course. No, of course it's doable, but you need to put in a lot of effort on it, particularly if you are doing the MSc, no, because the MSc includes a dissertation that you need to fulfill. So yeah, it's a demanding program, particularly if you are not quite familiar, and we provide plenty of help. And when the time comes in around July, you will receive some materials and how you get a head start into this. We have, once you are enrolled at Birkbeck, you have access to plenty of free courses, and you will need to complete some of those courses so you can start actually just landing on your feet in day 1. Okay, so that will be for me.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
So we have the final kind of presentation of this block from Dr. Charlie Underwood.
Sorry, Stephen, there is one student. We want one student for GBS that you can say.
Please,
yeah?
Please.
Yes. So we have Ella Nielsen. That is one of our students that is doing her dissertation right now. No, so Ella, if you can just say again, like the
yeah, of course.
just really quickly. Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I'm doing the full-time MSc in Geographic Data Science. And I think what's really interesting about the program is just how practical the knowledge is. You're really learning about the most current tools for manipulating and analyzing spatial data. And another great thing is that all the coursework is really designed to emulate the data analysis process kind of from start to finish. So you really get that sort of practical application of how to go through that process in terms of, manipulating the data, cleaning it, and then all the way to the sort of analysis side of it. For myself, to kind of speak on the question that was brought up in the beginning of how we like to address these issues related to climate change and sustainability and these sort of issues that we're facing currently, is using to speak on as well what Roberta said, using data to sort of inform decisions. I think it's a really huge part of the program. For me personally, I'm like Roberta said, I'm in the kind of beginning, middle stages of the dissertation process, and I will be studying the impact that municipal ferry systems have on transport accessibility and socio-spatial inequalities in neighborhoods in New York City.
What a brilliant research topic. That sounds fantastic, and thank you so much for being here to give us your perspective on the program. So as I was saying, we have one more presentation from this block, and then there will be time again for a few questions. If anyone has any questions, if you do have a question already, do put it in the chat, because then we can come to it immediately. So now I'm going to welcome Dr. Charlie Underwood, who's going to talk about BSc Environmental Geoscience.
Hey, thank you very much, Stephen. Apologise to everyone that the camera on my computer has just failed, and many attempts to try and get it to rework have not worked. So sorry, you'll have to imagine what I look like. So this is a new BSc, and clearly being new, we don't have students to speak to it directly, but it's really filling what we saw was a major gap in Birkbeck's delivery, in that clearly, as you are now aware, there are a number of geography-based environmental programs, both BSc and master's level, and we've also had BSc in geology as the geoscience side, but have never previously had the opportunity to pull these together. So what this program is aiming to do is pull together the geoscience and the environmental sides of the study area. And the reason for doing this is that clearly geoscience is the Earth as a whole and includes timescales from instantaneous through to the origin of the Earth. So there's a much wider variety of timescale involved. And because of that, the geoscience side is able to look back through long periods of time to study, for example, past climates, past sea level change, past environmental change, extinction, evolutionary radiation, and so on. All things that are feeding data into how we interpret how the Earth is behaving today. In addition to this, geoscience has always been the science of the extraction industries, both hydrocarbons and other essential materials. So as we move forward, we're needing to mitigate the extraction. Clearly, we are going to continue needing to extract some materials, some hydrocarbons, but particularly other material. We're going to need to find ways of reducing, mitigating pollution, and much of the study of that is done in the field of geoscience. And we're going to need to combine the knowledge of particularly hydrocarbon energy production and the knowledge of environment, and particularly of climate change, atmospheric physics, to work towards a carbon neutral or even carbon negative future of energy production. So what this degree hopes to do is bring together the traditional sides of geology and those of modern surface and human-based environmental science, I'm bringing them together into a much more holistic view. And the idea of this is this will feed into careers in particularly alternative energy, in extraction industries of low impact and removing impact from past extraction, and from monitoring environmental change by being able to use much longer term knowledge of environmental changes from the past to feed into the present and future. So hopefully that's a little bit of a summary, and as with everything else here, I'm completely open to questions.
Thank you so much. So yes, in this block we've heard about MSc Environment Sustainability, MSc Geographic Data Science, and just then BSc Environmental Geoscience. And I'd like to kind of leave about 5 minutes now, just in case there are any particular questions about those programs, or a question that's come to mind that you'd like to ask one of our program directors. And again, I'm going to be strict with myself and leave about 20 seconds of silence to let those come forward. I think that is about 20 seconds. If there's not any particular questions for those programs, I've put the links in the chat to the various landing pages, and I'm sure all the program directors would be very happy for you to reach out and ask them a question if one does come to mind at the end of this session. I've also put a link in further up the chat to a postgraduate open day that's coming next week. The intention of this session was really to provide a small taste of the impressive range of environmental programs that Birkbeck has to offer, but the open day is the best place to go to have those longer presentations and a longer discussion. I've got lots of questions, but I'm going to hold my questions. We're going to move on, I think, now to hear from the program director of also a new BA, BA Environment and Culture and Communication, with Dr. Anna Richards, who will be presenting on that. Thank you, Anna.
Thanks, Steve. Yeah, so this, as Steve has mentioned, is a brand new program for us at Birkbeck. It's called BA Environment, Culture and Communication. And what's different about this program, I think, from some others, is that although the students will learn something about the geographical science of climate change, there's an emphasis on how to communicate about climate change. So this might be in terms of journalism or creative writing or both. And we'll get students thinking about the best ways to get an environmental message across and to inspire change. And so the approach is very interdisciplinary, multidisciplinary, blending modules from humanities, creative arts, journalism, and as well as from the social sciences. The teaching methods on the course are varied. They're often very interactive. We have a hands-on or practical element to a lot of the teaching, including field trips and a work experience opportunity in the final year. So to talk about the modules that you might be studying if you study this course in a little bit more detail, there are some core modules, and then there's an awful lot of options that are also available from various different fields across the school. In the first year, there are 3 core modules. The first one's called Climate Change Communication, Feeling, Thinking, Acting. And this module explores specific sort of emotions related to climate change, things like eco-anxiety, and explores why we feel these things and how we respond to these emotions in different ways, and why in some people they inspire action, in some people they inspire a kind of inspire people to ignore them. And how to communicate also climate issues effectively as a journalist or as an advocate or as a creative writer. And on this module, there are often a number of guest speakers, for example, climate change journalists, writers, campaigners, and activists. In the first year, you also take a module called Humans in the Environment, which is provides a kind of grounding in environmental geography and some of the key debates in environmental policy. And the module explores the complexity of terms that we're familiar with, like nature and the natural, what those mean, what they mean to different people, and how they're mobilized in different ways for political and scientific ends. The third core module in the first year is called Production of the Human, decolonizing the canon, which introduces feminist and decolonial perspectives to think about the kind of power dynamics that underlie the formation of our environmental canon, about ideas about the human and the environment, and how they're represented in culture. And then already in your first year, although there were 3 core modules, you have a number of optional modules that you can choose from. For example, as I mentioned earlier, you get the opportunity to study an introduction to journalism practice, to develop skills in how to report and tell stories about the environment. And the second year then involves much more choice. There are no core modules at all in the second year, so you can construct a program that fits your own interests and emphases from a broad range, including, for example, from philosophy. There's a fascinating module on the ethics of killing human and non-human creatures, and what our obligations to non-human creatures are. Or, for example, a module called Future Food Systems and Sustainability, where you think about how food's produced globally at the moment and how it might be produced globally in the future, what the impacts of food production are, what future alternatives might be. And that module includes a field trip to an insect protein laboratory. And an element of coursework on that module, which I also think is really interesting, is to analyze a recipe. So it's another example of how a lot of the aspects of this course are quite practical and hands-on. And then the final year also involves a lot of optional modules, but also has the chance to do a work placement, which is usually about 20 or 30 full-time working days in the spring or the summer term in an organization broadly related to the environment. And yeah, I think, as is evident then, when you graduate from this program, you should be in a good position to enter a kind of various number of fields which involve some sort of communication about the environment in media and publishing, some sort of environmental advocacy or consulting. So, to sum up, it's not just about studying the environment theoretically, but also about learning how to be an effective climate change advocate with a very strong emphasis on creativity and communication. And yes, sadly, we don't have a student to talk about it because it's a brand new program, but yeah, in future years, hopefully we'll have many enthusiastic students.
Thank you so much, Anna. And I can see oh, there's a comment there. Thank you so much, Anna. And we have our 2 last presenters, Dr. Alana Bodo and Dr. Jenny Robertson, and they'll be presenting on MSc Climate Change, but also on BSc Geography and a bit on BSc Environment and Sustainability. I think I have that right. So shall I pass over to Alana first?
Sure. Thanks, Stephen. Hi, everyone. Thanks for the introduction. I'd be happy to talk a little bit about the MSc in climate change, but Jenny and I do kind of team up to do a lot of the sort of program stuff and a lot of the teaching. So if I do miss anything or if there's any questions, you can absolutely direct them to both Jenny and I. So I don't have really a very formal slide to go through, but all of the information about our kind of course requirements are, of course, on the website. And I think Stephen's putting some links in the chat. So if you do want to kind of follow along, feel free. But essentially, the climate change program is, of course, postgraduate. There's 3 compulsory or core modules. So students typically start with energy and climate change. Sorry, they start with climate change, science, and mitigation. And this will give students an overview of sort of the science and the causes behind climate change, also how we quantify climate change. So things like trends in greenhouse gases and the energy balance. You'll learn about models, and so global climate models, which can be very complex, but we do try to break it down to give students a digestible understanding of how global climate models work. In the second term, you go on to do Living with Climate Change, which is some really interesting topics on, communicating climate change, a little bit about food, really focusing on sort of the impacts and resilience about climate change, and also really taking a close examination about the inequities about the impacts, so differences between developing and developed nations. And then students finish their core modules in the summer by doing energy and climate change. And so that is a very popular module that's taken by students from across different programs and in fact, different schools. So not only is the content really interesting and really relevant, but you also get fabulous discussion from students outside of the program as well. So really interesting insights. And so energy and climate change, you look at both renewable and sort of non-renewable energies, looking at sort of the green transition, as well as policy implications and barriers to policy in energy and climate change. And just like all the other MSc programs, there's the dissertation and option modules. And I think we have one of our fabulous current students here, Richard, if you're on the call. Richard's obviously in his first year, and so he's done climate change science and mitigation and is almost finishing up with Living with Climate Change. But Richard, we'd love to hear from you.
Hello, everyone. So just coming up to the end of my second module. In terms of the course, the thing that I like most is the subject, obviously, and I think with particularly with the science behind climate change, if you're interested in climate change, it's easy to think you know a fair amount about it, but it turns out it was rather more complicated. So it's really exciting to learn, for example, why sea levels might rise, how the climate models work, and some of the amazing science used to recreate climates from the past. But the flexibility has been perfect for me. The teaching has been great. It's really welcoming and helpful, and nice variety of styles across the different modules as well. And in terms of the future, I came to this after a few years off as a carer and 20 years since I was last at university. So I can already tell that this will help me in the future, either return to my past career in the service, better equipped to progress in that. But I'm also considering moving more into environmental consulting, or maybe even carry on studying and do a PhD afterwards. I think I'm really glad to be doing it now. I wish I'd done it years ago, but I'm glad to be doing it now, and I've really enjoyed it so far. I'm happy to answer any questions if anyone has any.
Thanks, Richard, and thanks for your time. Sorry, Steve, if I took your line there, but just wanted to say thanks so much for representing the program.
You're welcome.
Thank you, and I think we will hopefully we will have time for questions. We definitely will, but perhaps we could hear a little bit about the two BSc programs that we haven't heard about yet: BSc Geography and BSc Environment and Sustainability. And I think Jenny is on the call to talk to us a bit about that.
I am. Hi, Stephen. Thank you. And I just want to say that I'm really excited, Richard, to hear that you're thinking of doing a PhD. It's a great feeling as a lecturer to hear that someone's enjoying the content, enough to think about pursuing it even more greatly. So that's really excellent to hear. So I'm here with BSc Geography and Environment and Sustainability hat on today. Geography I'm hugely passionate about. It's an integrated study into the relationships between people and places and the environment, and how they all interact together. How do differences in cultures, political systems, economies, landscapes and environments across the world come together, and how can we explore the links between them? It forces you to be interdisciplinary in your thinking. And that's the great thing about geography. Whether you're interested in the physical sciences side or the human side of things, you actually have a very broad remit to think about, and it allows you to focus. And our modules on our BSc Geography allow you to choose based on what your interests are, whether it is food and security or climate and society, for example. We think about how landscapes change because of physical processes, but also because of the human interactions with those landscapes. What are the implications of these changes through different time periods and scales? And we know that, Charlie touched on the fact that you can look back in time to essentially understand future climates, and that's particularly important. How can we actually interrogate information from the Earth's past to allow us to think about what we can learn about the potential future? One of the most significant problems that we face, obviously, environmentally, is climate change and its impact on the Earth, but also its impact on humans and how they live here. And we investigate that in the BSc Geography as well. And we actually have a new module on climate and society, past, present and future, nice long title there, where we think about it from a scientific point of view and then transition into the societal point of view, and consider things like climate justice, for example. In terms of our BSc Environment and Sustainability, we consider how our planet's natural environments and our resources exist, and how we can maintain this ecological balance between these environments and resources, and the fact that we have a growing population on Earth and that we have therefore growing needs associated with these growing populations. So to try and address and answer some of these big challenges, as we call them, we explore the fundamental dimensions of environment and sustainability. We think about adaptation, mitigation and corporate responsibility. And we think about the major issues in climate, environmental management, like biosecurity, sustainable natural resource management, biodiversity loss. We also talk about climate change, and we look at more specific examples like future food systems that I know has already been mentioned for other programs. So it's sort of thinking about it from a very broad aspect, including subjects like global conservation as well. In terms of how we teach, I'm probably repeating some of the other content, but we are hugely diverse in Birkbeck, and the diversity of our student body is actually one of the greatest things about us. It's one of the things I enjoy teaching the most on, because I love the fact that we have students that come from backgrounds that are, for instance, from working environments, people who have had a break away from studying and then they're entering back into studying, students who are coming, if they're doing undergraduate degrees, they're coming straight from their A-levels. And this makes for a really great collective of people that can share experiences. So we really encourage peer engagement. We teach using computer practicals. We do field work. We have fieldwork classes in Norfolk, in the south of the UK. We have a fieldwork class in the Thames, one in Knepp. We really want to try and make sure that we're teaching in a very engaging way, so it's not just classroom based, but it's lots of practicals and chances to actually speak with your peers and learn through each other. And I also have a student here. Namusa is a student who studied our BSc Environment and Sustainability and decided to stay and do an MSc because she liked it so much at Birkbeck. So if you could tell us your thoughts, that would be brilliant. And thank you very much for offering your time, Namusa.
Thanks, Jenny. Thank you very much for the opportunity. So for me, what drew me to the program was as an environment and wildlife activist, I was looking for a program that sort of like equipped me with the knowledge of how to sort of like influence policy and change people's behaviors towards climate change and taking care of wildlife. And this program sort of like opened a lot of doors for me in terms of my career-wise. And in my second year of study, I got my job as a climate change program officer with Harrow Council, which is what I'm currently doing at the moment full-time, and also studying full-time at the same time. So I think what I like about Birkbeck is it gives you the flexibility of not giving up your job. If you've got like a full-time job and you don't want to give that up, it gives you that flexibility of keeping your full-time job and also studying either part-time or full-time as well. And also I would sort of like leave out the amazing lecturers that we have at Birkbeck. They're very supportive and no one is left behind. If you're struggling, they're there to hold your hand and help you throughout the process. So that's the reason why I like Birkbeck and why I stayed at Birkbeck to do my MSc in Environment and Sustainability as well. Thank you. Thanks, Jenny.
Thank you so much, everyone. It's really wonderful to hear about these programs. So we have we've just heard, if I get this right, from Anna from BA Environment, Culture and Communication. We've heard about MSc Climate Change. We've also now heard about BSc Geography and BSc Environment and Sustainability. And so we have five minutes to either have some questions from our audience about those specific programs, or indeed about any of the programs that you've heard about today. I think we have all but one of the program directors are still with us. So if anyone does have any questions either about those particular programs or the session as a whole, it'd be wonderful to hear them. You can come off mute, raise your hand, or type in the chat. And again, I'll leave some space for you to collect your thoughts.
Can I just use the space just once while everyone's thinking about questions, just to say a huge thanks to the students for coming and representing. And, you say you're lucky to have great lecturers, but equally we're so lucky to have, engaged and interested students. So thank you so much to everyone.
Yeah, I'd like to echo that. Thanks so much, because it's time out of your day and time out of your time working and studying, so it's very much appreciated. So these, the question I asked right at the beginning of the session was around, what environmental challenges are close to your heart, and I said that could be something as personal as the impact of air pollution in your community, or as global as the need for sustainable urban development. And I invited you right at the beginning, as you were listening, to think about which program might help you take a step towards addressing those challenges. And as Simon's just put in the chat, it's really interesting to see the range and diversity of environmental courses as a lecturer too. And I feel that way. Having everything kind of presented together lets you see kind of the scope of the problem and all the different angles and ways in that there are to addressing it. And I'm proud to work at an institution that is thinking about environment sustainability all the way from kind of organizational governance to kind of the way in which climate emotion might change how we communicate about climate change. All, I think, kind of rooted in the great work that's been going on for a long time now in the social sciences to think about the relationship between environment and sustainability. And we're trying to innovate all the time. So the BSc in Environmental Geosciences, as was being discussed, kind of once again tries to tackle the contemporary challenges of climate change, but by thinking about the past and by thinking about the long time scale that we've had on this planet. So yeah, there is an invitation to ask a question, but I know it can be hard sometimes to think of one. I'll just give it a couple more seconds if anyone wants to ask, and if not, we have open days coming up soon, which I put into the chat, and I'm very happy that everyone's taken time out of their day to join us. We've had an audience between about 13 to 15 people in the room for the chat, so it's been well attended. It's nice, Simon. Simon's just put in the chat. What we teach is that while it is one of the major challenges of our time, perhaps the major challenge, we should not feel overwhelmed. We should feel inspired by the diversity of ways people from different backgrounds and skill sets are finding to take on the challenge. That's lovely. With that, I think I'm going to end the session. If anyone wants to jump in with a question, you're more than welcome, but I'll extend another thank you to all our program directors, all our students, and this is the last event of the Climate Festival. Thank you very much for being part of it, and we'll see what we can do with these recordings and edit them and put them online and things like that over the coming weeks. So thank you very much, everyone, and have a nice weekend.